Deep in Western Australia's desert, abandoned mining towns hide more than gold, they hide death. Collapsed shafts, deadly accidents, and restless miners whose spirits never left. Locals whisper of shadowy figures, chilling footsteps, and voices calling from the dark. Some who dared to explore never came back, or returned changed. Tonight, we enter the ghost towns where the past still kills, and the dead walk among the ruins. Dare to watch, if you survive. If the ghosts scare you, stay close and don't blink, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more haunted stories. 1 Gabanintha, Western Australia. They say silence can be louder than sound. If you stand among the ruins of Gabanintha, a forgotten gold mining town in Western Australia, you can almost hear the echoes of the men who once lived, worked, and died here. Gabanintha was born in the late 1890s during the Great Gold Rush. Miners from across the world rushed into this dry and lonely land, hoping to strike it rich. Wooden shacks, small shops, and even a post office quickly appeared. For a short time, the town was alive with noise, laughter, and the endless ringing of pickaxes. But beneath this hope was danger. Goldfields were cruel, and so was the desert that surrounded them. The mines were deep, unstable, and unforgiving. Many miners lost their lives to collapsing shafts, falling rocks, and poisonous dust that filled their lungs. Old records speak of workers trapped underground, their bodies never recovered. Some say their cries can still be heard at night, carried on the desert wind. Locals who have visited Gabanintha in recent years tell unsettling stories. A photographer who came to capture the ruins claimed he felt footsteps behind him, though the ground was empty. Another traveler swore he saw the shadow of a man leaning on a pickaxe near a crumbling stone wall. When he looked again, it was gone. Ghost hunters who camped nearby reported whispers in the darkness, the sound of coughing, and the faint glow of lantern light moving between the ruins. Even during the day, there is a heavy feeling in Gabanintha. The sun beats down on the broken walls, but the silence feels unnatural, as if the town itself is holding its breath. At night, the desert becomes eerily alive. Some visitors refuse to stay past sunset, saying the air turns colder and the sense of being watched becomes overwhelming. Today, Gabanintha is just a skeleton of its past, ruins of stone buildings and empty spaces where life once thrived. But to those who believe, the spirits of the miners have never left. Their unfinished work, their sudden deaths, and their restless energy still linger in the dust and shadows of this abandoned town. 2 Abbots, Western Australia. If you walk through the lonely remains of Abbots, it feels like time itself has stopped. The dry wind moves across the empty ground, but many believe it also carries the voices of men who never left. Abbots was founded in the 1890s during the Murchison Gold Rush. The town once had a hotel, a post office, and small shops. Miners from far and wide came chasing gold, digging deep into the hard desert soil. For a short time, the streets were alive with noise, drinking, and laughter. But life in Abbots was never easy. The mines were dangerous. Tunnels often collapsed, taking lives with them. Old stories tell of explosions underground, where men were buried alive before help could reach them. Others died from lung disease caused by breathing the dust day after day. Many miners were young men who left their families behind, never to return home. Today, the ruins of Abbott stand silent, but travelers say the ghosts of those miners still remain. One visitor described hearing the sharp sound of metal striking stone, even though the mine shafts have been empty for more than 100 years. Another reported seeing a faint figure walking across the old town site at night, carrying what looked like a lantern. When he moved closer, the figure faded into the darkness. Paranormal groups who have explored the area claim they felt cold spots in the hot desert air. A few even recorded strange whispers on their devices, voices they could not explain. Locals say if you camp near the old town, you might be woken by coughing in the night, echoes of miners whose lungs never healed. The landscape around Abbots is harsh and unforgiving, yet it holds a powerful presence. The crumbling stone walls, rusting machinery, and forgotten graves all seem to whisper the same message: this town is not truly empty. The The spirits of abbots remain tied to the land, forever trapped in the dust and shadows of their broken dreams. 3. Rothsay, Western Australia. They say the desert never forgets. In the ruins of Rothsay, every broken wall and abandoned shaft feels heavy with the memory of lives lost. Those who have walked here claim the silence is never complete. You can always sense something watching from the shadows. Rothsay was established in the 1890s after rich gold was discovered in the region. Like many towns of the gold rush, it grew quickly. At its peak, Rothsay had more than 500 people, with homes, shops, and even a small police station. The future looked bright, but underground, danger was always waiting. The mines at Rothsay were deep and unstable. Miners worked long hours in extreme heat, often with little protection. Collapses were common, and many men were killed without warning. Old reports tell of workers crushed by falling rock, or trapped far below where rescue was impossible. Others suffered slow deaths from lung disease, their last breaths taken in darkness. Visitors to Rothsay today find only ruins and rusting machinery. But some insist the past has not truly gone. A camper once claimed he was woken in the night by the sound of heavy boots walking past his tent, yet when he looked, no one was there. Another traveler exploring an abandoned shaft felt a sudden rush of cold air and heard what sounded like a man's voice calling for help. He left immediately and refused to return. Paranormal investigators who visited Rothsay reported strange photographs, glowing orbs hovering near the ruins, and shadows where no one was standing. A few even described feeling sudden pressure on their chests, as if they were suffocating deep underground, just like the miners once did. During the day, Rothsay looks like nothing more than a ghost of history. But at night, under the desert stars, the ruins take on a different life. The cracked stone walls seem to whisper, and the empty shafts breathe with unseen energy. Those who have dared to stay after dark believe the spirits of the miners are still here, unable to leave the place where they worked, suffered, and died. Rothsay may have been abandoned more than a century ago, but the land remembers. And perhaps the dead do too. 4. Big Bell, Western Australia. In the middle of the desert, the ruins of Big Bell rise like a ghost from another time. The silence is heavy, broken only by the wind moving through empty stone walls. Some say if you stand still long enough, you will hear music from the long-abandoned hotel, echoes of nights that ended in tragedy. Big Bell came to life in the 1930s, built to serve one of Western Australia's richest gold mines. At its peak, the town had hundreds of residents, a post office, a church, and even a grand hotel, the Big Bell Hotel. The hotel was famous for its long bar, said to be the longest in the southern hemisphere. For a while, the town was alive with miners, families, and the hope of golden fortune. But life underground was brutal. The mines were deep and dangerous, and accidents happened often. Records tell of cave-ins that buried workers alive, machinery that crushed men without warning, and explosions that filled the shafts with choking dust. Many miners never came back to the surface. Their names were quickly forgotten, but their spirits are said to remain. Travelers who visit Big Bell today report unsettling experiences. A tourist exploring the ruins of the old hotel swore he heard the faint sound of laughter and glasses clinking, though the building has been empty for more than 70 years. Others claim they felt watched while walking through the deserted streets, as if dozens of unseen eyes were following their every move. Paranormal groups who investigated the site described strange happenings, doors slamming even though no buildings are intact, ghostly figures seen standing in the empty windows, and whispers caught on recorders when no one was speaking. One visitor even reported seeing a miner's shadow move across the broken walls just before sunset. By the 1950s, the mine closed and the people of Big Bell left, abandoning their homes and dreams in the dust. Today, only the skeletal remains of buildings and the haunting shell of the hotel remain. But to many who visit, it feels as though the town has not been left empty at all. The voices of miners, the echoes of drinking halls, and the restless spirits of the dead still linger in the ruins of Big Bell. 5. Gwalia, Western Australia. If you ever wander into the desert heart of Western Australia, you'll find Gwalia, a town that looks frozen in time. Rusting tin shacks, a silent hotel, and the broken remains of a once thriving mine tell you one thing: life here ended suddenly, but the people never really left. Gwalia was built on gold. In 1897, miners from all over the world rushed here when the Sons of Gwalia mine opened. The town boomed quickly. Thousands of men worked day and night, chasing fortune deep underground. But with fortune came tragedy. The mine was dangerous. Sudden collapses, poisonous air, and explosions claimed lives regularly. Old records whisper of workers who went down for a shift and never returned. Locals still say the mine's tunnels echo with their cries. By the 1960s, when the mine closed, Gwalia was abandoned almost overnight. Families left their homes as they were, meals half finished on tables, beds still made, clothes left hanging on doors. It's this sudden emptiness that makes Gwalia feel so eerie today, as if the town itself is holding its breath. Visitors often report strange encounters. At the Old State Hotel, where miners once celebrated paydays with rowdy drinking, glasses are said to rattle on their own. Guests claim to hear footsteps moving across dusty floors, even though the building has been empty for decades. A few even describe hearing muffled voices, speaking in Italian or Welsh, the languages of migrant miners who came to work here. But the most unsettling place is the edge of the mine itself. Travelers who stand there at dusk sometimes hear the clang of picks and the echo of men's voices drifting up from the pit, though no one is inside. Some say they've seen shadowy figures carrying lanterns, vanishing when approached. One story often told is of a man who camped near Gwalia's old railway station. He woke in the night to the sound of heavy boots on gravel and saw a figure walking slowly past his tent. The man called out, thinking it was another traveler, but the figure dissolved into the air before his eyes. Today, Gwalia is preserved as a ghost town museum. But behind the history, the haunting remains. It isn't just an abandoned mining town, it's a place where the spirits of men who dug too deep still linger, unwilling to let go of the gold that cost them their lives. 6 Mount Ida, Western Australia. They say the silence of Mount Ida is heavier than the desert heat. Walk its empty streets and you'll feel it, the weight of a place that should be forgotten, but isn't. The wind whistles through the ruins of miners' cottages, and sometimes it carries voices that don't belong to the living. Mount Ida began in the late 1890s, when prospectors discovered gold hidden deep in the rocky hills. Within months, tents turned into timber homes, and the town was alive with miners, blacksmiths, and families hoping for fortune. But fortune in Mount Ida always came at a price. The mine shafts were narrow and unstable, and accidents were common. Cave-ins buried men alive, while others suffocated from lack of air deep underground. Old reports tell of explosions that shook the town, sending families rushing to the mine site only to find lifeless bodies being carried out. When the gold began to run dry in the 1920s, the population declined. Families packed up and left, leaving behind a handful of crumbling buildings. By the 1930s, Mount Ida was almost empty, and by the 1960s, it had become a true ghost town. Yet locals believe the miners never really left. Travelers who pass through often describe unsettling encounters. The ruins of the old hotel are said to echo with laughter and clinking glasses, as if miners are still celebrating a payday long gone. At night, people claim to see dim lights moving slowly across the hills, like lanterns carried by men searching for a way out of the mines. One chilling account comes from a prospector who visited in the 1980s. He camped near one of the abandoned shafts, only to be woken by the sound of picks striking stone. When he looked out, he swore he saw 3 men in old-fashioned mining clothes, swinging tools in the moonlight. As he approached, they simply vanished. He left before sunrise, never to return. Others speak of a woman's presence near the old boarding house. Some believe she was the wife of a miner who died underground. Her figure is often seen at dusk, standing silently in a doorway, watching as if waiting for someone who will never come home. Today, Mount Ida is nothing more than ruins and dust, but its shadows remain alive. The land remembers the men who worked themselves to death, and at night, their restless spirits still roam the ghost town, unwilling to let the silence bury their voices forever. 7 Nan 9, Western Australia. The road to Nan 9 cuts through endless red desert, and when you arrive, it feels like you've stepped into another world. Silence covers the land, broken only by the creak of old timber and the whisper of wind. But if you stay long enough, that silence begins to sound alive, like someone is still here, watching. Nan 9 was born in 1890, one of the first gold mining towns in the Murchison region. For a time, it was a bustling place with hotels, shops, and even a post office. Hundreds of miners came chasing fortune, digging deep into the dry earth. But the riches of Nan 9 came with danger. Mines collapsed without warning, and dust filled the lungs of men until they choked underground. Stories spread of men falling down shafts in the dark, their bodies never recovered. By the early 20th century, the gold started running out, and the town began to die. Families moved away, businesses closed, and Nan 9 slowly fell into ruin. Today, all that remains are stone foundations, rusting machinery, and the shadows of what once was. Yet many believe the miners never left. Travelers who camp near the ruins often report strange activity. At the site of the old hotel, glasses are said to clink on their own, and the faint sound of piano music sometimes drifts through the night air. Some claim to hear men's laughter echoing across the empty land, fading suddenly into silence. One chilling story tells of a group of explorers who spent a night in Nan 9 during the 1970s. Around midnight, they heard the sound of boots crunching on gravel outside their camp. Thinking it was another traveler, they looked out, but saw only empty desert. The footsteps continued for hours, circling their camp, though no one was ever there. Locals also speak of the mine shafts as places to be avoided. People have reported hearing the clatter of picks and shovels deep below the ground, even though the tunnels have been sealed for decades. A few even claim to have seen shadowy figures with lanterns, appearing near the shafts before vanishing into thin air. The most unsettling tales are of voices calling for help. Visitors have sworn they heard men crying out from underground, begging to be rescued. But when they searched, nothing was found, only silent earth. Today, Nan 9 is just a ghost town, but its haunting atmosphere makes it unforgettable. The spirits of miners who never made it out are said to linger, trapped forever in the desert goldfields they once worked to death. 8Q, Western Australia. Q is called the Queen of the Murchison, but today, it feels more like a kingdom of ghosts. Walk down its empty streets at night, past the crumbling stone buildings, and you'll feel eyes on you, eyes that belong to men who never left. Founded in 1893 after a rich gold discovery, Q quickly became one of Western Australia's most important mining towns. Grand hotels, banks, and even a courthouse rose from the red earth, built to serve thousands of miners chasing fortune. For a while, Q was alive with music, laughter, and the clatter of horse-drawn carts. But underground, the story was very different. The mines of Q were treacherous. Collapses were common, burying men alive beneath tons of rock. Others died slowly from poisonous air or heat deep below the surface. Some workers simply disappeared into shafts, their bodies never recovered. As quickly as wealth was found, lives were lost, and the ground of Q was soaked with tragedy. By the mid-20th century, gold was fading, and so was Q. Families left, businesses shut down, and the grand buildings stood empty. The town slipped into silence, but the silence never felt natural. Visitors say Q is haunted, and the stories keep piling up. One of the most notorious sites is the abandoned hospital. People claim to hear the cries of injured miners echoing through its empty halls. Doors slam by themselves, and some visitors have felt icy hands brush against them in the dark. The old Masonic Lodge is another hotspot. Travelers have reported seeing shadowy figures in long coats moving through the ruins at night. Others swear they've heard chanting or whispers when no one else was around. But the most chilling stories come from the mine shafts themselves. A man exploring near Kew in the 1990s said he heard the unmistakable sound of men working underground, picks striking stone, voices calling orders. When he followed the sound, he found only sealed shafts and empty desert. He left quickly, shaken to the core. Some locals believe the spirits of Kew's miners still guard the gold they died for. At dusk, strange lantern lights are said to flicker across the hills, moving steadily as if guiding men through tunnels that no longer exist. Kew may look like just another faded town in the outback, but to those who've stayed after dark, it's clear, the miners' souls remain. And in the silence of the desert night, their presence is impossible to ignore. 9 Agnew, Western Australia. Drive far into the gold fields of Western Australia and you'll come across Agnew, a place where silence rules. The wind whistles through rusting machinery and broken buildings, but many who visit swear the town is not as empty as it looks. Agnew was founded in 1895 after gold was discovered in the region. Within a few years, the small settlement grew into a thriving mining town, with a post office, shops, and a large hotel called the Agnew Hotel. At its peak, the streets were alive with miners, their families, and travelers chasing fortune. But life in Agnew was never easy. The mines were deep and unstable, and deaths were far too common. Collapses trapped men underground, while sudden explosions shook the earth, leaving families waiting in vain for their loved ones to return. By the 1940s, as the gold began to run out, Agnew's population started to vanish. Homes were left empty, businesses closed, and one by one, the residents moved on. By the 1950s, Agnew had become a ghost town. All that remains today are ruins, and, if the stories are true, restless spirits. The old Agnew Hotel is one of the eeriest places. Travelers who have camped nearby claim to hear music drifting through the night, as if a party is still going on inside. Glasses clink, men's voices laugh, and footsteps echo across floors long rotted away. Some have even reported the smell of beer in the air, though the hotel has been abandoned for decades. Near the mine shafts, things feel even stranger. Visitors have spoken of hearing the sound of picks striking stone and the muffled cries of men deep underground. Locals warn that these shafts are cursed, carrying the energy of all those who died working in the darkness. One chilling account tells of a geologist who stayed near Agnew in the 1970s. He woke in the middle of the night to see a figure standing at the edge of his campfire light, a miner, holding a lantern. The figure stared silently before turning away and vanishing into the desert. The man packed up at sunrise and never returned. Today, Agnew is nothing more than ruins, a lonely reminder of the gold rush days. But if you stand there in the stillness of night, you may hear it, the faint sound of boots on gravel, or a distant voice carried on the wind. In Agnew, the miners may be gone, but their spirits have not left. 10 Day Dawn, Western Australia. Step into day dawn and you'll feel the desert itself holding its breath. The ruins lie scattered across the red earth, stone walls, rusting machinery, and broken timbers. But what makes day dawn so unsettling isn't what you see, it's what you hear. People say the echoes of the dead still wander here. Day Dawn was established in the 1890s after one of the richest gold finds in the Murchison region. The Great Fingal mine became the heart of the town, drawing in thousands of hopeful miners. At its peak, Day Dawn was alive with hotels, stores, and families, all depending on the mine. But beneath the surface, danger was everywhere. The Great Fingal was a deep and unstable mine. Collapses and gas leaks were common, and many men never came back from their shifts. Local newspapers reported accidents that shook the entire community, families left grieving as bodies were carried out, wrapped in canvas. The mine's tunnels earned a reputation as the belly of death, where fortune and tragedy were tied together. By the 1930s, as gold production slowed, Day Dawn began to die. Families left, businesses shut down, and the town slipped into ruin. The mine itself finally closed, leaving behind gaping shafts and tunnels that seemed to breathe with the desert wind. And with that silence came the stories. Visitors say the old Great Fingal site is haunted. At night, the sound of picks striking stone can be heard, even though no one is there. Lantern lights flicker deep in the shafts, moving steadily before vanishing into darkness. Some claim to hear voices calling for help from underground, as if the men who died in cave-ins are still trapped below. One chilling tale comes from two travelers in the 1980s. While exploring the ruins, they both heard the steady sound of boots walking behind them. When they turned, no one was there. Moments later, they saw a shadowy figure of a miner holding a lantern step out from the mine entrance. Before they could speak, it disappeared into thin air. Even the ruins of the old hotel carry strange energy. People have reported hearing laughter and music drifting across the desert night, as though the miners are still celebrating paydays that ended nearly a century ago. Today, Day Dawn stands in silence, but the silence feels alive. The men who gave their lives for gold have left their mark, and their restless spirits still guard the ruins. In Day Dawn, the desert remembers, and it refuses to let the past go. The gold is gone, but the ghosts remain. In Western Australia's abandoned towns, every shadow tells a story, and every whisper carries a warning. Step carefully, because here, the past never sleeps.